Vijay Venkatesan. I'm the Vice President of Enterprise Data Management for an integrated healthcare delivery system. We'll be discussing the HP Converged systems, the S500 specifically. So I think part of our transformation that we had to go through from a data management perspective required us to move away from what I call traditional data management, really focus on big data ecosystems. As we evaluated big data ecosystems, we knew we wanted a hybrid approach to it, both an open source and an appliance-based architecture, and that drove us to look at HP and other solutions as part of that ecosystem. I think the converged systems, I think what we found was that once you implemented it, I think in terms of stability and performance and speed, plus with HP support on demand, has been really important for us because we're relatively new into this landscape. And we needed to feel like there was going to be a process by which we're being hand-holded through it. And I think that was all important factors. And I think that what we've also found is that the scalability and being able to get more economical over time. So as your footprint increases, I think the cost goes down significantly. Those are all important dimensions of the decision making. For example, in healthcare data, there's a lot of what I call volume, variety, and velocity of data. And we needed to process data to impact the care we deliver to our patients. So it requires us to process terabytes of data, and sometimes close to a petabyte at times. So we need to bring all this data and make analysis easy with it in the context of the care we deliver to our patients. So the speed by which we can do analysis, just for comparison, in a traditional extract, transform, load process, it would take us 3 hours to load our large volume tables. It takes us about 10 minutes to do that on an SAP HANA, on a Converged Systems platform, and that speed by which we can process and deliver insights is a very important enablement of value to us on the patient care model. So stability for us is a three-part factor. So it's like the initial implementation, how smooth does that process go, how detailed is the implementation or partner with you to make sure they've accounted for everything for your environment specifics and they've come prepared to do that. The second part is really the post-implementation handoff. How does the partner hand it off so that your teams now feel confident and comfortable in being able to take ownership of the environment? And the third is really, are there issues occurring periodically in the context of, once you've implemented, once you're now loading data, it's in production, how frequently are you having to do any kind of patches or upgrades or maintenance? And so all of those pieces, we look at it as a component of stability. And for us, the Converged system has been very reliable and stable in those contexts. We started off our implementation with a very small footprint. We had 10 units of SAP HANA, which is a relatively small footprint. It's about a 2 terabyte, 3 terabyte initial footprint. Now we're going to scale it to about 10 terabytes. And as you are going to do the scaling, it's very important to know if the implementation partner has accounted for scalability during the initial implementation process. So for us, as we worked with HP, one of the things we found was they were very proactive with us about growth, about scalability, and how to construct the racks and what kind of hardware peripherals you would need to make sure that it can be scalable. So for us, each time we have to add a new unit, it's very elementary in terms of being able to just come in and deploy it in a relatively quick time. So within 15 to 20 days, we can have a new unit up on the Converged system platform, which is incredible. So we don't have to go through a very lengthy hardware implementation processes that's time consuming. Part of what we did, I think a lot of organizations can benefit from this, is that when we put together our strategy for data and the big data platforms, we included our infrastructure teams, our technical services team, our legal team, all at the table at the forefront. And because of that, any kind of contractual issues or negotiations that had to be done, everybody had awareness of it. We also was able to kind of get HP to own the project more as a project management aspect of implementation. And because that they had come in with that approach, we were able to kind of account for all the parts and create a responsibility matrix on who was doing what components. So it was incredibly smooth for a brand new platform to be implemented. So technical support is really, to me, more about, I always say this, that you don't need support until things go wrong or things go bad. And when it does go bad, as soon as you make that first call, are you getting the right resources to come to bear to be able to discover the root cause of the issue with you. And in that sense, I think HP, given their history, has been very supportive and has been incredibly supportive, especially on the Converged Systems platform, which I think for them as well is a differentiating platform on the SAP HANA side. So we were able to kind of quickly get to them in terms of what support we needed, and they have been really forthcoming into what they can do and how they can implement it, if you will, over time. So we've kind of evolved our support model over time, but I think even the base support that you get has been really helpful and has been really on target from what our expectations were. So I think one of the things that we are always interested in is that when it comes to scalability, at some point you always kind of have a discussion around, is your current array or rack or whatever it is, the hardware infrastructure, does it need to be completely removed and you have to bring in a new structure in? One of the areas on the Converged system that we want to see is how portable and scalable can they really make it, so it's really more an add-on each time and not a complete redesign. So with HANA, I think the more units you have, there's a point at which you have to kind of do an upgrade. So we are hoping to see if HP can think about how can they make the scalability a more easier context and conversation over time. At that point in time, we were an HP preferred customers. We looked at HP, we looked at Cisco, we looked at other vendors, but then we decided as to how do we integrate that within our data center, and that seemed to be a more logical choice to kind of evaluate our preferred vendor options. I think part of what we found as we did the evaluation, Cisco was relatively brand new to the marketplace with their HANA integration, and HP, I think what they had done, historically speaking, had a great partnership with SAP, and in fact, SAP came to the table and recommended them to us to say, you should look at HP, and what we found as part of the discovery process is HP had a more integrated support and an implementation team, and that really kind of helped us to come in and put it together without having to rely heavily on our technical teams to be able to learn something new and be able to implement at the same time. So we had a very nice relationship of leveraging our technical expertise with HP's SAP expertise. Given that it's a new system and it's a new technology, what we were looking for are people who had the expertise, the experience, and the strategic partnership with SAP as well. And I think those were very critical factors, and what we also wanted was somebody who knew how to do it and do it relatively quickly. So speed to implementation was a very important component for us because we were moving the paradigm. We had to really show that this is indeed faster. So you can't do a big data implementation and have it be slower than your traditional approach to data. So we wanted to kind of showcase speed and acceleration and quicker time to market and value, and I think that was a very important differentiator for us. There's two parts. So the very first thing is we are trying to envision if we should move out of our data center onto a private hybrid cloud environment, and in that context we want to understand what does scalability mean and how quickly can HP and SAP partner to create that kind of a, so if I go from a 100 unit footprint to a 500, is the time it takes, is it half the time or is it 8 times the time? Those are the differentiators we want to understand. So that's why it's on the top of our mind, because we see now the capabilities of HANA, and our customers around our ecosystem are very excited by the possibilities. So we see this expanding, but we also want to expand with cost in mind. So affordability is going to be a key equation. So those are the reasons why we're interested in how can the Converged system platforms become affordable over time as well, and not just an incremental cost. I'm not the most technical person to be qualified to speak on this, but I look at everything in the context of what was the value delivered. And from that perspective, I would say it was a 10 because we were able to quickly demonstrate, when I say quickly, we were able to get our SAP HANA implementation in partnership with HP in under 45 days. From going with absolutely a blank slate, having it implemented in production. And that's a pretty incredible timeline when you think about it. Like in an organization that's not conducive to accepting brand new technologies on the fly. So we were able to do that, and I think that is the key differentiator for us. So in that sense, we have delivered value. We're now being able to maximize the value. So I think one of the things that we tried to do was to understand what are the right business use cases where a converged system is a differentiator. So even before we got into talking about SAP HANA or big data and those things. We just said, what kind of capabilities is the organization interested in, and is speed an important component of those capabilities? If speed and access are two important components, and the answer becomes a big data ecosystem, then you say what are the right platforms to bring in. So my advice to most organizations is understand kind of what your value propositions are, what your use cases are, where big data is a good enabler of those values, and then work from there, because that's an easier business case to build, rather than saying we just want to go from technology A to technology B. People go why, and you need to have the answer for the why. I think for us, peer reviews are very important. Looking at industry thought leaders and industry best practices are equally important. So we kind of look at all of the above in some ways. We look at what's happening in other health systems. We look at what's happening in other industries outside of healthcare. We look at what kind of evolutions are coming. We also look for what kind of software products, on what platforms are they being deployed and developed on, and how are people using it. So to us, it's more about integration of these various things. And so we always start from how are they going to come together. And the more strategic partnership each of these entities have, the easier it is for us to make the case for adopting them. So we're always intrigued by or interested in companies that are coming together. So SAP, HP is a great marriage. And then HP with Hortonworks. I mean, all these are important partnerships to understand, because that's what's, if you find in most organizations, they all have a variety of platforms. So the hardest thing to do is to integrate them. And I think even at this conference, you heard a lot about bringing things together, integrating, and that's going to be the normal in terms of how people have to operate. So that's important. And I think a lot of the vendors are at different levels of what I call organizational maturity, and so we have to find people who are not only mature in their process, but also have the entire support model, the help desk. It's more of an integrated services model that's very critical for us. So that's what we're looking for. So it's not just looking at the technology expertise, but it's an integrated of how do you implement, support, maintain, and sustain over time.